Hello friends, welcome to the Through the Eyes of George YouTube channel. Today what we're going to talk about is being sexy. Actually what we're going to talk about is being smart is sexy. Ashton Kutcher made this comment in August 2013 at a Nickelodeon Teen Choice Awards event. And Mr. Kutcher is right, and George Washington would agree with Ashton Kutcher on that. George Washington never had any formal collegiate opportunities. When his father Augustus died in the 1740s, George never had that opportunity. His older brothers, half-brothers, Lawrence and Augustine, did go to school in Appleby, England, but George never had that opportunity. So his mother, Mary Ball, encouraged him to pursue an education here, an occupation that would help him out to make money for the family and for himself. So he did that. He did just that. And as a teenager, when he was 13, he copied down the famous Rules of Civility, the 110 maxims about civility and etiquette. Now, in the year 1748, March 11th, 1748 to be precise, Lord George William Fairfax, let me get that straight, Lord George William Fairfax commissioned George, or asked him to go on a surveying trip with him and looking at this new land that Lord Fairfax accumulated. So George accepted. George wanted to go into the Naval Academy to learn about that. He always had a desire to do that. He couldn't. His mother didn't want him to, and he politely obeyed as a young man. Now, as George went on to educate himself and have new experiences, you could say that his life of education was on-the-job training, that he flew by the seat of his pants, or he learned as he went. George was very, excited to learn new things. And I think that stems from the time when he wished he could have gone to school and the disappointment that he experienced in not having a collegiate experience in England like his brothers did. Now, in speaking about George Washington and education and relating to that today, George would wholly, W-H-O-L-L-Y, wholly be acceptable of skilled trades, because that's what surveying is. They don't teach surveying in high school or elementary school or in college unless you take a course in that in college. They don't do that. So how would you know that? And whatever the skilled trades is, George would be totally on board with that. Now, with that being said, George understood the education in a religious sense. Now, George wasn't a deeply religious man. He did have public prayers, and he did talk about the Creator or the Almighty Hand or Providence, but he wasn't pompously talking about his faith in public. But people knew he believed in God. Now, I say that because whether people believe in God or not, or whatever their faith is, you learn things about life and how to treat people and how to treat yourself, or you should at least. That's another way that George educated himself. So George would absolutely agree with going to a missionary school or going on a missionary trip to learn things. He would totally agree with that. Absolutely. I'm sure that George would have liked to do that. Now, in one of my favorite books about George Washington, it's called George Washington, A Collection by W.B. Allen. It's a collection of correspondence and writings from George Washington to others. And on December 7th, 1796, George Washington states to Congress, "I have hitherto proposed to the consideration of Congress the expediency of establishing a national university and also a military academy." Now, further down in that statement, he says, "The assembly to which I address myself, or to Congress, is too enlightened not to be fully sensible how much a flourishing state of the arts and sciences contributes to national prosperity and reputation. True it is that our country, much to its honor, contains many seminaries of learning, highly respectable and useful, but the funds upon which they rest are too narrow to command the ablest professors in different departments of liberal knowledge for the institution contemplatable through they would be excellent auxiliaries. With all that being said, that's a lot to say. George would highly support the creation or the making, better said, the making of the Department of Education. No matter if it's Betsy DeVos who's in charge of that or anybody else. I'm not advocating that Miss DeVos is, doing a good job or a bad job. I'm just saying having somebody in charge of our educational system is a good thing that George would support. Because like I said, he never had the opportunity to go to a collegiate school. Having a board of education for colleges to make it available for tuition, for grants, for scholarships, having the Pell Grant, having FAFSA, the opportunity for students to go, hey, if you want to come to our college or you want to go to public school, let me help you. But it's all up to you. George made the free will choice to be a surveyor, to go with George William Fairfax. He made the choice to take command of the Virginia militia during the 1750s for the French and Indian War, to get that on-the-job training that he had, and also learning from his half-brother Lawrence and other people that were around during the French and Indian War, and the Fairfaxes as well. Now, and speaking of today, standardized testing, Common Core, no child left behind. It may be good in some circumstances, it may not be. But you know as well as I do that all children learn different, they have different genetic opportunities. You know that all children from different backgrounds, different demographics, different countries have different opportunities of learning. Now, if you want to, you have to have the free will and you have to choose to get from here to here in your education. No one can force you to get to here. Now, I am in the occupation, or I'm in the long process of getting my bachelor's in psychology debt-free. That's something that I chose to do by working hard, sometimes taking a semester or two off so I can make money so I don't have to have debt. And I'm not advocating that people have to do that, but that's just what I chose to do because I have other avenues and things that I'm working on in my life where that fits well for me. Now, scholarships and grants are available. George Washington would highly support the FAFSA and grants and scholarships in the Pell Grant. Now, George Washington, he understood the importance of networking and making those connections with people to educate yourself. Having mentors is another way for education. And you know as well as I do of all the books and correspondence and things that are out there about George Washington that he had a few mentors. And some of them which could have been Lord George William Fairfax. Hey, why don't you come on my adventure in this new land that I have accumulated and survey with me? I know for a fact that George learned lots about the wilderness and how that forged his drive and passion for education. And in a book by Peter Stark called Young Washington, this book depicts a lot of great things that George learned in the wilderness as a surveyor. Now, this book here, The Education of George Washington by Austin Washington, is another great book about George's education. The third book that I have to show you is George Washington's Rules of Civility. These are the rules of civility and conversation and etiquette that George wrote down when he was a teenager, approximately age 13, that everyone talks about. Another thing that George did, like I said, he was a godly man. And in this book by Michael and Jana Novak called Washington's God, it depicts George's educational process or spiritual journey in learning about God or providence or the almighty hand. Now, I just highly encourage all of you in this video to get an education, whether it's a skilled trades or getting your GED or whatever it is. Whatever you want to do to be successful, it's available. Ask the right questions, network with the right people like George did, and you will be successful. Thank you for watching this video, and don't forget to subscribe, click the notification bell down below, and click the thumbs up if you like this video.